Hi, I'm Tom Chick. We're in my dining room. In a minute, we're going to go over to the dining room table and talk about Dice Hospital. I played a round of Dice Hospital yesterday and won. Actually, I don't think it's that difficult a game. Solitaire. I think you would be hard-pressed to lose. It's one of those solitaire games where you're expected to care about your score, and you try to beat your score. Normally, I'm okay with that. Am I okay with it in Dice Hospital? Well, let's go take a look and talk some more about it. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2020. And this is going to be the last day with Dice Hospital. Tomorrow, we're going to play, you know what, I don't know. Sometime between now and then, I'm going to figure it out. But in the meantime, let's go talk some Dice Hospital. Come with me over here. Okay, so let's take a look here at Dice Hospital, breaking down some of the colors and the specialists and the departments that we saw in the game yesterday. So here is the game basically laid bare. This is like when you take a watch and you take it apart and lay out the gears to see how it works. We have here each of the 3 colors of dice. Each color has 3 specialists, 3 departments that can be added, and 1 default department. So then let's consider how each color functions in the context of the game's rules. Let's look at red to start. Red is a critical care unit in the default hospital. Pretty straightforward, I guess. Red patients, they need some critical care. And if we look at the red cards, the red specialists and departments, you can maybe sort of see something that's going on. For instance, the anesthetist, I don't know why I have a hard time with anesthetist, but anesthesiology is pretty straightforward, but anesthetist. So this department, this is the anesthesia department. The anesthesia department and the anesthetist add increments to a die. So if this is a 4, the anesthetist, when he turns it into a 5, can also raise another red die. He is good at treating red dice. Similarly, the anesthesia department, if I have a set of 3 red dice with the same value, someone going to the anesthesia department, whether it's an anesthetist or just a nurse or even a urologist, can raise all 3 dice 1 increment. So, okay, we can sort of see something that they're getting at here. Let's look at a cardiologist and a cardiology department. A cardiologist, when raising a red die, can also raise any other die's value. Okay? What does a cardiology department do? Well, if you have a straight in terms of die values, you can raise each one of them by 1 point. Okay? So that's a cardiologist in a cardiology department. Let's look at a surgeon in an operating theater. Here's actually where I think this should have been the foundation for how the dice and the colors work, because this makes the most sense. A surgeon, instead of raising a red die 1 value, can raise it 2 values. An operating theater, instead of raising a red die 1 value, can raise it 3 values. So a surgeon and an operating theater, according to, if you were to look at the way red dice work, are especially valuable at boosting the increments in which you improve a patient. Pretty straightforward. I don't know what to make of cardiologists and their cardiology department and anesthetists and their anesthesia department, but this right here seems like a solid foundation for a gameplay system. Let's then look at how it works in the other colors. So again, ignoring how microbiology and virology work with, actually this kind of makes sense here. The immunology department seems to go with microbiology. Okay, but then why does the virologist work with the allergy? Who knows? Let's look again at this relationship here. A pharmacist can boost a green die 1 increment. An ear, nose, and throat department boosts the same green die by 3 increments. Why? I understand that a surgeon boosts a red die 1 increment and an operating theater, namely a whole wing of the hospital, the whole room in the hospital that does what a surgeon does it 3 times as effectively. Why does a pharmacist who boosts a green die 1 increment, why does an ear, nose, and throat department do what a pharmacist does 3 times as effectively? I don't know. Okay, let's see how this translates to yellow dice. We have a hematologist, pretty straightforward. She can take a yellow die, and instead of raising it 1 increment, from a 1 to a 2, for instance, she can raise it 2 increments, from a 1 to a 3. All right, well then let's see how her corresponding wing works. If we look at the surgeon operating theater as the fundamental basis for the game's systems, how does this relationship work with yellow dice? An orthopedics wing is 3 times as effective at doing what a hematologist does. What? Huh? What do those have to do with each other? And then all of these other departments and specialists, similarly, they have nonsense relationships. They mean nothing. We're just randomly taking colored dice and manipulating them using things that have medical terms on them. The actual real-world implications of those terms mean nothing. The colors mean nothing. This is just a nonsense interaction of values and colors and words. Numbers, colors, medical words. There is no connection between how they work with each other. You might as well be playing, I'm going to attempt German, Ganz schön clever, or that's so clever. That's a game where you've got dice, values, colors, and then interactions, different types of interactions, and you just score it on a sheet, and there's no attempt to give them medical words, or there's no attempt at theming. You might as well play that as this. It's just a panache, a splash. It's an abstraction. It's Jackson Pollock gameplay design. Although I don't mean to besmirch Jackson Pollock that way. I'll just use this term again. I've used it before, and it's a little bit mean, but it's just garbage design. It's just trash. There's nothing to it. Why, for instance, does, look, where's our radiologist? Look here. A radiologist, when he improves a yellow die, can also improve another die of any color that has the same value. Why is that radiology? I don't know. They don't know either. Well, let's look in the context of the gameplay, of the actual game world. Look at this. Look at what a radiology department does. Anything that has a 1 to 3, any 3 dice that are valued 1 to 3 can be improved by 1 point. Why is that called radiology, and this is a radiologist? And why does a radiologist only work with yellow dice, but a radiology department works with any colored dice? What does this even mean? Nothing. It means nothing. It's garbage design. I'm just going to go play Yahtzee or Ganz schön clever. There's no reason to play this. There's no reason for this to be hospital themed. It's just nonsense. It's just theming slathered on mechanics with no regard for how they interact. Really annoying. And annoying because, I normally couldn't care less about it, but annoying because, I paid $40 for the dumb thing. Okay, let's get this out of the way because I want to show you guys a couple of really quick things. So one of the things, the game uses dice because, of course, you want to roll random values, and then you want to put them in your wards. And, oh, by the way, look at this, too. The distinction between a die that has been treated and one that hasn't been treated is marked on these little hexes down here. When I treat a die, it moves down like that. If I treat a die, it moves down like that. Now, when my turn is over, a crucial part of what I need to see at a glance is which dice have been treated and which haven't. That does not bear out. And if you watched my playthrough, there was at least one point where I didn't realize which side of the equation a die was on. Why not have a treated die move to a different part of the board? Why? And furthermore, the line is already, because they're on hexes, it does a little zigzag thing here. That already makes it hard enough to read. Why not just have them straight lines like that, where it's a clear above and below? That's just them playing around because they have room. But if you've treated a die, give it a separate area on the board where it can go live. Just an annoying interface issue. And speaking of interface issues, so we're using D6s to track values, and we are incrementing and decrementing the D6s. A 6 goes to a 5, a 4 goes to a 3. That's a pain in the ass on a D6. Now, of the things that it took me a long time in life to learn, including throw shuffling and how to pronounce desultory, is the fact that a D6 always equals 7 when you add the face value and the opposite face. You guys probably knew that. I didn't. I had no idea. So that makes it easy to flip, to at a glance know what's going to happen if I flip this die. That 3 is going to become a 4, that 1 is going to become a 6. Very straightforward. What's difficult to do with the D6 is, if I'm looking at this D6 here, where is the 2? It's not there, it's not there. Is it there? Nope. Oh, there it is. A D6 is not good for tracking numbers in increments because, I know it's on the opposite face, but I don't, so much of Dice Hospital is, okay, this is a 4. Okay, this is a 5. Okay, this one goes to a 2. D6s aren't good for that. And I realized too, I don't know about you guys, I have a ton of D10s. D10s are a great way to track numbers, like especially numbers between 1 and 100. If you've got a board game, you get 2 D10s out, and you know this from D&D, and you can use it to represent any number from 1 to 100, actually from 0 to 99. My problem with it is they're not as, a D6 is a nice solid square. It's not going to accidentally tump over. A D10, not quite as solid. If I reach across here, oh no, what was that? I don't know. Also, you'll note D10s, and I don't know if this is all of them, but a D10, like there's the 5, where's the 4? I can't see it from here. So here's again, tracking with the D10. There's the 4, the 5 to a 4, oh, there it is, which is even more complex than the D6, which only has 6 sides. This has 10 sides. I discovered, and you have to order these specially, this is not how D10s are made. This is a counting D10. It goes, you start it at 1, and then it goes 2, 3. It clicks over one at a time, 5, 6, 7, where the digits 1 through 0, 0 through 9, they're all adjacent. So you can use it. It's called the counting D10. Counting D10s, you can get them any place fine board gaming components are sold. So that's a little tip for you. Just move this out of the way because another example I wanted to show you of a game that I was pretty enthusiastic about based on the description of it, that also uses values, colors, and theming with almost no regard for how they interact with each other. This is Role Player. Get it? Get it? Not Role Player, Role Player. See? Pretty clever. I had this post-it on top of it because this post-it was telling me you've gotten 2 red and 2 green dice out of here and you put them in Dungeon Degenerates. Role Player has a ton of colored dice. Actually it doesn't anymore because this post-it is now used to tell me that I have cannibalized its components. There are no more dice in here. It's been cannibalized. But so when I opened this up, I was actually going to play it. I wanted to get it out because when I was thinking of, okay, games that just take colors of dice and numbers and theming and make dice puzzles, like math dice puzzles, how does Role Player hold up next to Dice Hospital? So I got it out, and when I got this, I got an expansion called Monsters and Minions, which I think is a mistake because if you want to play a dice puzzle with just colors and numbers and theming, throwing more stuff into it to make it more complex does not help. Because when you've already got an issue with how the components fit together in the context of a game world or a theme or even a rule set, just throwing more junk in there is almost never going to help the situation. So I sat down with Role Player and I started trying to untangle the Monsters and Minions expansion from the base game. It's impossible. The stuff was just, there were no icons on a bunch of the components. There was no list of the different pieces that are distinct of the cards. Like, it's all tangled together. I couldn't sort it, and it was just infuriating. I went to Board Game Geek. I went to the official website to look for a list of components so I could untangle everything. No such luck. So I finally gave up. I threw everything back in the box. I scratched out on this note and I just wrote cannibalized, because I really like the dice in this game. They're big, they're colorful, they're bright colors. Like, if you look at the Dice Hospital dice, those are pretty sickly colors. A sickly green, a sickly yellow. Okay, that, by the way, very thematic. I like that. Why couldn't other parts of the game work this well? And you know, red, the color of blood, right? But Role Player, big dice, the bright saturated colors that pop, they go great with better games. So here's how Role Player works. You take a race. Each one has a template. Here's a dwarf, here's an elf. You then take a class. Here's a warrior. Do you want an elf warrior and a dwarf sorcerer? No, that's silly. The other way around. An elf sorcerer and a dwarf warrior. You then take a backstory. A dwarf warrior outcast or a dwarf warrior aristocrat. So easy, a dwarf warrior outcast and an elf sorcerer aristocrat. Now, what you're going to do with these templates is every turn, and this is a multiplayer game, by the way, in solitaire, it falls apart. You're gonna take dice and you're gonna roll them and you're gonna arrange them from crappiest to best. And it's going to be, each one's going to be put on a little card with a number under it. So this would be number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Then the players take turns picking one of them. Naturally, you want the higher die, but then the card number is going to be the turn order. Once you've taken a die, you then slot it in one of these grids, in one space here. And you fill the grids up over time from left to right. And as we all know from playing D&D, a character's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma are determined by 3d6s. So this elf right now has a strength of 14. Once you've filled up a row for that stat, it's locked, you've determined it. That is going to be that character's value. So pretty cool so far, right? So what's the deal with the colors? Nothing. Nothing at all. What do the colors mean? Nothing. Well, why are they there? Ah, good question. They're there because your backstory is inviting you to arrange colors of dice in specific positions. My elfin sorcerer aristocrat wants, I don't know an example, wants, we'll pretend this is a die, wants a blue die on the third slot of strength. Why? What if I do it? Well, victory points. Each of these, you know, your class and your backstory are fundamental ways to get victory points. So if as an aristocrat I put a blue die, which the blue means nothing, in the third slot of strength, I am going to be eligible for these little stars, which are victory points down here. Now, as for the class, that at least makes sense. If I get my elf sorcerer aristocrat's intelligence to 18, I'm going to get 4 victory points. Sure, of course, I want high values in intelligence. So if I've wasted these 2 6s up here in strength, that's a terrible elf aristocrat sorcerer. You know, I want to put the 6s down here. And as the colors are arriving, you could see from this card, there are way more than 3 colors of dice in Role Player. As the colors are arriving, I want to keep an eye down here to position different colors in different places, whereas I want different values to total up in different stats according to this right here. Furthermore, this blue, I get more points for the number of blue dice. I get a point for every blue die in my grid. Why? No reason. If I'm a dwarf warrior outcast, I get more points for red dice in my grid. Why? No reason. Furthermore, a dwarf warrior outcast wants his second die in intelligence to be red. Why? Now, I will give role player props for whenever you place a die into a position for a stat, you then get to do a die manipulation trick. And some of these kind of make sense. Kind of, more or less. At least here you can see them kind of trying. But this whole class and backstory, and by the way, the race, all the race does is it's going to give you, at the end of the game, a plus or a minus to a particular stat. So if I am trying to be, let's see, oh yeah, a dwarf warrior wants constitution. If I get a constitution of 17, I'm going to get 3 victory points at the end of the game. However, a dwarf is going to get +2 to his or her constitution. So if I only get it to 15, oh no, and there's a 4. Oh, and now I have to put a 5. Oh, I didn't make my 17, but I'm a dwarf, so I did make it. There's also an alignment system over here, which is just nonsense. And there's gear that you can buy, and that's just the base game. Once you add the monsters and minions, I might even have the name of that wrong. It's monsters and something. Once you add that add-on, it's just absurd. Just even more nonsense without regard for what it means or how it interacts. So there's my rant for today. Basically, my point today, just go play Ganz schön clever. If you're just going to mess around with dice and values and colors of dice and dice manipulation, and you're not going to bother giving it a theme, don't bother with a game that pretends to give it a theme. Because Role Player and Dice Hospital, nope, they don't do that at all. All right, that's my ranting for today. I'm done. It's a little exhausting to rant. Come on back tomorrow, and I'm going to play something that I actually like. Thank you guys for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be back tomorrow with something less exhausting to watch, I'm sure. Cheers. Oh, shoot a monkey. Ugh.